Hey YouTube, this is a doctor coming to you from Park City, Utah. This is a story that we covered back in August of this year about Chief Dave Booth of the Heber City Police Department choking a suspect that was cuffed and in custody. This was investigated by Sheriff Jared Rigby of the Wasatch County Sheriffs Department, who completely covered this up. The chief was suspended and then completely reinstated. At the time, we did a number of public records requests on this story that were completely ignored. This story has been completely covered up and has now been broken in the mainstream news. Here are copies of the body cam footage and the news story about the incident.
It's taboo to tattletale on your administration.
You were under investigation for putting your hand on someone's throat. I just want to know what happened.
We could debate all day long, right? Did he put his hands on his throat? Did he not put his hands? Was it an accident? Was it intentional? Right? Did he squeeze? Did he not squeeze?
He needs to be fired. This is what's wrong with law enforcement.
Earlier this year, the chief of the Heber City Police Department was placed on administrative leave, accused of choking a suspect while placing him in the back of a police car. For months, even after the chief was cleared of all wrongdoing, Heber City has refused to talk about the case, release public records, or even explain why the chief was under investigation. Tonight, in a Fox 13 News exclusive, you will be among the very first people outside of the department to see the body camera video. As Fox 13 investigative reporter Adam HERBETS explains how officers feel that they've been retaliated against for crossing the thin blue line.
Camera on.
Matt, please have my glasses and my shoes. Thank you. I don't want to fight with you guys.
On March 31st, paramedics were treating Jesse James Rodriguez. Minutes earlier, his wife called to report he was drunk and wanted him out of the house. When Heber City Police got there, officers say Rodriguez tried to grab one of their guns.
I want to stop you.
Come on. There you go.
Chief Dave Booth was on scene. He says he was done being patient and decided it was time to take Rodriguez to jail. Officers say until this point, everything they saw was appropriate, but watch the chief's right hand as he struggles to get Rodriguez into the back of the police car.
I couldn't hear or tell if the suspect was breathing, couldn't hear or tell. I did see that it was a grab and there was pressure placed on the trachea.
This man is a veteran Heber City police officer who left the department but is still too nervous to reveal his name or face. He is not one of the officers who reported the chief, but agrees with those who did, especially after reviewing body camera video.
We have an obligation to police ourselves. Nobody's above the law, and nobody's allowed to do whatever they want. I don't care if you're the chief of police. You can't do that to somebody that's handcuffed in the back of a police car. You can't do that.
Absolutely, it's a case that should be reviewed, especially in light of the position that the department took shortly before this happened regarding any sort of neck or choke restraint.
Chris Burbank used to be chief of the Salt Lake City Police Department. He's referring to an email sent out by Heber City's use of force sergeant months prior to the incident, reminding officers that any type of choking technique is not allowed. In fact, he says Chief Dave Booth should not have even touched the suspect, especially with so many other officers standing around.
As the administrator, I never wanted to put my officers in a position to have to investigate me. That is just a horrible position to be in. But if it were to happen, boy, that is going to be the most open, transparent investigation that has ever been in the history of the organization, because I would never want anyone to accuse me of somehow covering up.
Heber City has not been transparent. Even after Chief Booth was cleared of wrongdoing, the city has refused to release body camera video or even explain why the chief was under investigation. All the video in this story has been obtained independently by Fox 13.
Absolutely, it is public information and should have been released.
You were under investigation for putting your hand on someone's throat. I just want to know what happened.
Which never happened.
We have the video, sir. As the chief continues to deny what happened, We found the comment he gave us contradicts what he told state investigators.
Obviously, there was some force used to get him in the car. Would it be surprising to you if there was body cam or dash cam footage that showed your hand on his neck at one point?
No, I don't think it'd be surprising. I just viewed it as something I've done literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times.
In August, days after the state cleared him of criminal wrongdoing, the city sent out an email stating the chief is back to work because whatever the complaints were against him, they were not substantiated, found to be baseless and without merit.
When you say baseless and without merit, you're just calling somebody a liar, and you're saying that this never happened.
State investigators tell Fox 13 they cannot explain the city's email because they never told Heber City the complaint was baseless or without merit.
Now that he's survived this, he was going to come after us, and in any way that he could.
The day after the email, multiple officers tell Fox 13 the mayor called a mandatory police department meeting.
She was very upset. Somebody in our agency had gone to the media. She told us, and I quote her, and this is Kelleen Potter from Heber City, that she believes in karma and karma's a bitch.
That is unethical. That is unethical, and whoever implied, suggested, hinted at it should no longer be employed.
City Attorney Mark Smedley verified the mayor's comments, but said he could not remember the context. The mayor has ignored all requests for comment.
And then they saved the chief for last. And this guy's angry when he's talking to us. I'm going to make you guys tell me who did this. I'm going to make you. And you're going to do what I tell you. And if you don't, I'm going to fire you.
It seemed very clear to me that the city's reaction to the complaint against the chief was violating Utah law. It was retaliation.
Cameron Platt is the attorney representing Sergeant Jason Jarvie, one of the officers who reviewed the body camera video and filed a written complaint. He says whether the chief's use of force in this case was excessive is up for debate, but the law requiring officers to report concerns is not.
They could be criminally culpable for covering up. The way that the city treated it and reacted is much more important and much worse. If it was such a minor use of force, why so much effort to cover it up?
Sergeant Jarvie says his supervisors strongly encouraged him to take a demotion after reporting the chief. He has since left the department, quote, solely due to the city's retaliatory actions. Jarvie has provided Fox 13 a copy of his personnel file, showing he has never been disciplined. As part of the case, the mayor also placed both him and the chief under an internal investigation conducted by the Sheriff's Office.
This is done by his friend, Rigby, the sheriff. They're friends.
Both the city and Sheriff's Office have refused to provide copies of the completed investigation. However, videos obtained by Fox 13 show Sheriff Rigby repeatedly spoke on behalf of the city, not as a neutral third party, sometimes lecturing or threatening officers rather than asking questions.
There is no excessive use of force. And so your perception is wrong. What Dave Booth did is not even use of force. It really comes down to the future, your future in the police department.
Sure.
So you can dig in your heels and say,
and that's not what I'm doing.
This is how I feel and no one's going to change. And okay, that's your decision. You just won't get any trusted positions having to do with DT and use of force and sergeant and those kinds of things because you're not willing to learn and be open-minded to.
I cannot believe you would even wander into that area. That is the creation of the thin blue line.
I'm here to tell you right now, they'll never tell on him again. They'll never do anything like that again. This will never happen again in Heber City. This is what's wrong with law enforcement.
Sheriff Rigby has also ignored our requests for comment and refuses to provide a copy of his internal affairs investigation. Multiple officers have already left the department because of this case. Others say they're in the process of trying to do the same. Reporting in studio tonight, HERBETS, Fox 13 News.